The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back to the podcast, and we're we've already started, and so I have a guest here today. But first, before I introduce my guest, let me just tell you. First of all, I'm in the most awkward position I've ever been in for a podcast. But I'm in. Let's just put it to you this way: I'm in a. How would you describe this vessel without giving away what the vessel is?
A steel tomb.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. So,
a sarcophagus.
Dave,
epic proportion.
Am I saying your last name right when I say Ferruolo?
Ferruolo, but very close. Ferruolo.
Damn, that sounds like I'm getting adjusted here. It sounds like you make furniture for a living, Dave Ferruolo, or you're a banker. What is it? You can't hear? Hold on 1 second. Go ahead and talk.
Check. I guess we're on.
Yeah, well, I can turn it.
Or we can start over. I'm not hearing anything out of these. Does this thing have an off button or something, or an on here?
Oh no, that's because you're wearing the wrong ones.
Who the fucks are these? Where are these?
There you go. I think those are his.
All right. Oh shit. Yeah, that's.
Bam! There you go. See, maybe I should keep that in. I don't know. Maybe I may edit that out. I may not.
Now you can turn it down, or you'll blow my freaking eardrums out.
All right. Let's see here. Tell me when. Say something.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
All right, Dave. As I get up close to the mic, tell us about your career. Tell us about, well, first of all, we were here in Fort Pierce, Florida, at the Navy SEAL Museum. It's the Udt Seal Museum. Nobody really says SEAL Museum or UDT, but it's the Udt Seal Museum. And there's a whole history. I would recommend if you're interested, go to their website. There's a whole history on there about the Navy SEALs, Frogmen, the UDTs before us, and the Scouts and Raiders, and how we evolved into who we are. And it's very interesting. If you didn't know, and you just think the Navy SEALs are these people just go in, these guys that go in and do these missions that get put up on the news, there's a whole lot more to who we are and how we evolved into who we are. And so there's a muster down here every year where they do demonstrations, and I was the keynote speaker here this year. I don't know who convinced them into letting me be the keynote speaker, but it worked out pretty well for me, and for them. And it was an honor to be here with all these Tommy Norris, Mike Thornton, Rick Kaiser, Grant Mann. How in the world could I pause on Grant Mann? His last name is Mann. In fact, I loved it when we were there the other day. He said, "There's only one man here, by the way." So, just incredible human beings, patriots, men, not just Grant Mann, but men. And it's just unbelievable when you come down here and you get to be close to these guys. And I got to see a lot of people I hadn't seen in years. And then the Navy SEALs Fund, which I'm on the board with, and Dave is on the board with, and they came down and they auctioned a bike, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute because it was pure Frogman, the way that auction turned out, and it was the whole experience this weekend was just amazing. I got to meet with class 33 from 1950, I want to say 57, 56?
60? 67 or 8.
Okay, 60.
Or whatever. Yeah. I remember him telling me, and I'm like, oh my God, I was just born.
So, yeah, that's right. It was like 67 when they went through. And just an amazing group of guys. I got to talk to them. And then we had the most incredibly ferocious skeet shoot I've ever been a part of in my life. And it was just a massive group of people with, they had a SEAL in each team, and there was literally a tropical storm, almost a hurricane happening while we're shooting. Literally one of these, several times this happened. What do they call those things? The things that we're shooting.
Skeet?
I guess it's a skeet. I don't know. They call them different things. Birds.
Birds.
One, if it goes across the ground, it's a rabbit. But The wind was so strong, probably gusting 40, 50 miles an hour. It picked one of these up, and I'm aiming at the thing, and it probably went 100 feet straight up into the air. It was supposed to be going horizontal, but it went vertical. So it was pretty interesting watching these guys, and just an amazing time out there as well. So here we are. And if you've been wondering where I've been and why the podcast hasn't been on, that's why, because I've been on the road and then getting down here as fast as I could to speak at this, and then dealing with the fact that we didn't know if it was going to be a hurricane, didn't know where it was going to hit. At the same time I'm giving my speech, I literally walk up onto the platform to give the speech, and news broke that supposedly Joe Biden had won the election. So looking out into the audience, it looked like I was looking at people that just, found out that their best friend died. So that was a pretty remarkable time to be giving a speech about freedom and socialism and the creep of communism and what it takes to be a winner. And I talked about several different things and what's the word I'm looking for here? I pushed it all into one. What was the word you were using the other day that the guy wrote the book? I was
nudge.
I was nudging it all into one speech. So Dave came down with the Navy SEALs Fund, and they were auctioning off a motorcycle. And so that's where Dave and I met. And you might have seen that live stream on Twitter. And then I think you guys did something on Facebook as well. And, but before we get into that, Dave, tell us about your experience. You're a PhD, you're not just a SEAL, and you've written 3 books. And it's interesting. We were talking a minute ago about how it was these books you wrote before you got your PhD and what's changed since you've gotten your PhD. And a lot of SEALs are very spiritual. They're getting to a lot of different things about the mind and how far they can take the mind, because that's what we do when we go through SEAL training. And so anyway, just tell about your books, because they kind of follow along this line a little bit, I guess, right?
Yeah, they sure do. I got out of the military in the early 90s, and it was difficult, as there are with most guys that get out of the military. The transition from military life, being a Navy SEAL, to being a civilian and trying to make your way through civilian life. And there's different rules, and there's different philosophies, and there's different mindsets. And sometimes it doesn't jive with the military mindset, never mind the team guy mindset. So it was hard to navigate that. So I started compiling just like a success log for myself. And I just started putting down like little bits of wisdom, like, what do I need to do? Okay, so when I get frustrated, what do I need to do? When I'm in a tough situation, what do I need to do? And I started compiling like Frogman philosophy and trying to apply it to the civilian world. And that worked out really well for me. I was able to open up my own marine construction business, and I was very successful. Opened up a scuba diving shop and trained people all over the world. That was very successful. And then at one point in time, a professor that I was putting through a scuba diving class said, you should really write some books. The stuff that you tell us in class and your philosophy and your energy is really good. And I didn't think it was relevant until I ended up at a kind of like I would say a mindfulness retreat out in California, and I ran into a bunch of published authors, some very famous ones, and they convinced me that I should at least give it a shot. So in typical Frogman fashion, I had penned out 2 books in 6 months, and within a year, I had self-published both of them. So
wow.
Hoo-yah, right?
Yeah, that's the way we work.
So,
first of all, you did what most frogmen wouldn't do when the guy said, "Hey, you should write a book," and just say, "Hey, screw you, man. I'm doing what I want to do." Okay, you listen. That was the first good thing. But like, I wrote my book in literally 10 years, well, not 10 years, really almost 20 years of research and learning and lessons. And then I tried to shop that thing around to get a publisher for 3 years, and they said it wasn't relevant. And Post Hill Press said, we want you to do it, but you have 3 months to do it. So I literally wrote it probably within the same thing as you.
Yeah, I remember pumping out the first draft of the first book in 14 days. And then I think it was like 24 days for the second book. And then it took, you know how it takes the editing process and the writing process.
Now, how did you edit it? Who edited it for you?
Well, I started editing it myself, and then I just remembered that, I'm not really good at that stuff. So I had a knack for writing. I never knew I did, but I did, and the writing was actually pretty good. And I actually surprised myself. It was like, wow, like this is me. I didn't realize I could do this. And
what's weird is, and you probably will agree with this, is once you start typing, you get past about 20,000 words, you start to think through your fingers. It's hard to explain that, but your brain works in tune with your fingers, just like it does with your mouse when you're talking.
Right. And, there's actually psychological research that backs that up, like brain research that backs that up. Like your processing of when you talk, when you think, when you sing, when you type, it goes through different processes. Right. So you do think differently when you're typing rather than when you're talking.
I literally think I could write a book with my phone. I mean, I think so well with my phone, it's unbelievable. It just to be honest with you, the spell check is the worst. The reason I was asking you about the editing is because what I did was I found 8 people that I know read. They're just ferocious readers, and I sent them the manuscript and let them each edit it. And then they all came back, and if there were duplicates, and I would change that. And then other people had different things that were, because the computer, if you have spell check on that, it'll change things as well. And it had changed some major things on there that would have looked really bad. So they found that stuff. Sure. And then I had one editor that Post Hill gave me, and he was really good. He helped me, and I don't. Maybe you could tell us what this is, because my brain will work. Well, I'll write, and then I'll look at it, and then if I adjust this to here, it's as if my brain writes out of order, and then I put it in order, and it makes much more sense. That's what John did, the guy that edited it from Post Hill.
Yeah, editors make the book. Yeah. It's almost like writers supply the content and the ideas and the philosophy and the undertones, but really editors make the book. And I did a similar process, and then I hired an editor for each book, different editor for each book, and I interviewed a bunch until I found one that fit what I thought each book was going to give. So yeah, it was a long process of editing and back and forth, as you know, but it came out great. I was very happy with the end result of both of them, and very happy with both my editors.
What are the names of them?
One editor was okay. So you're going to make me think of something that happened 16 years ago.
No, not the editor. What's the name of the books?
Oh, okay. So I was about to say,
we have not been drinking. That's the problem. That's why we're
right. If I had been,
don't drink that one. Whatever you do over there.
Oh, you mean this one that says "Don't break the glass"? It's encased in some kind of like
amazing
Star Trek kind of.
I'm not going to go into detail where we are, but it's like a museum down here. It's in and of itself. It's pretty cool.
There's a hint.
Yeah. It's made out of steel and aluminum. And anyway, go ahead.
So I wrote 2 books. One is titled The Elements of Life Success. And that book was the compilation of all the lessons that I learned that I employed for myself that got me to where I was at that point in time. And then when I started rereading the book, I said, well, wow, I really need to follow this again. And that's when I began my academic pursuits. And, I had a goal of, a PhD by 50. And I had never taken a class before. So I'm in my mid to late 30s, and I decided to, sell my business, go back to school. And, by the time I was 50, I was finishing up with my dissertation and going into clinical practice as a psychologist.
Wow. By the way, he has a jacket on right now that has pockets on the elbows, and he has a pipe. No, I'm just kidding.
I could start talking with a British accent if that makes people feel better.
So what are the names of the books, and what are they about?
Okay, so the actual first book is called Connecting with the Bliss of Life. And,
this is a train killer, by the way, just so you know that.
Okay, right. And I'm glad I'm here with another frogman, with a brother, because, you understand that when you come out of the military after being a SEAL, you're trained a certain way, and your perspective on life changes forever. Yeah. That situational awareness, that tactical awareness, that mindfulness of knowing what's happening at every point in time, just like your book, right? Just like your book talks about, like.
No, also, and when we look at things, Whereas other people make a huge deal out of stuff, we don't make. We try to figure it out. We just see it in a different. We see it as a problem that needs to be solved. Other people see it as a problem that they can't deal with.
And even further than that, sometimes you look at things and you see it as a problem that's already solved.
Right.
You're already past that point.
Yeah.
It pops up and you're like, it's a done deal, and you're already on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And simple things that would cripple an average person that doesn't have this type of training and this mindset is something that actually jazzes us up, like,
Right.
going out into an ocean during a tropical storm, right? Because we want to honor our brothers,
Right.
and swim out through a tropical storm so we can do, an at sea memorial with our past brothers' ashes. I mean, we don't see a problem with that. We say, this is the mission. We need to honor our brothers. We're going in this ocean. We're going to swim out through this tropical storm, and we're going to make it happen. And it's already a done deal. And this is 2 years in a row now that we had tropical storms during that ocean memorial where we swam ashes of our brothers out into the ocean.
Wow.
So, and I did it last year, and you did it this year, and that's just the mindset. We don't say, oh, look at the weather, we should not do this. We go, wow, look at the weather. That's going to be a good. Let's do it. Get it on. Let's get our Frogman on. Let's get in the water. We're here for our brothers. We're here to honor people that walked before us, and this is what we're here to do. So,
and let me tell you something about that. So on Sunday morning, bright and early, we got out and we had a little ceremony, and they had the ashes of several different frogmen that had passed, and we go out to the beach, and it is an angry sea out here on the west coast of Florida. When there's a tropical storm coming in, there's it's breaking. I bet it's a quarter of a mile or more out there, maybe a half a mile, where they're starting to break, and they break all the way in. It's also one of the shark bite capitals of the United States there. So when we go out there, we're trying to stay in line, and I'm going to put video of this up on my social media. But we're walking out, we're staying in line as we go out, and we call it a swim, but we really couldn't swim out too far in that. We went, where we're about up to our necks, and we were getting hammered there. But I remember looking over at Hector Delgado, who's another, a SEAL brother. All these were SEALs that were out there. And I remember looking over, and I see Hector Delgado, who's a SEAL and an amazing guy, has an amazing career. And I look over at him, and he's got the ashes in his hands. And as he's dumping those out, I just was full of emotion standing there. I almost felt like I was on a mission. Because Hector and I look to the left, I look to the right, and these guys are dumping the ashes into the water, and the sea is angry. And it's like I felt at that point my job was to make sure that everybody's in line, because I didn't have the ashes. So my job, and I just instinctually took charge of my position. And it was very inspiring to be a part of that and actually be out there. And then we came back in. It was, I went back down there yesterday. And I'm not going to lie to you. It was last night because I was in my RV camping out right down here, and I just had this sneaking feeling one of those frogmen were going to come up. Now there's a part of them out in the water on the beach, and I just was expecting somebody to bang on the side of my RV and freak me out and start playing games with me or something. I don't know. But it was an amazing experience to be down there, and the families were there. It was just great. It was great.
Yeah, it was definitely an emotional experience just watching, and also last year, when I took part in it also.
So, where were we going with this? Because we were talking about your books.
Oh, so yeah, angry. I remember just the word angry. I got out of the military, and it was angry. I was full of all this frogman energy, and you couldn't really go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I needed to find a way to relax and to calm down. And I started taking martial arts when I was like 10 or 11 years old, and I earned my first black belt when I was like 15, just prior to getting my driver's license. And then even before I went in the military, I was one of the assistant instructors at this dojo. So and my master at the time, Salih Azam, with Wichiru martial arts, he taught Buddhism. He taught Zen Buddhism, and so I had that as a foundation. And so when I got out of
where was this? Where were you growing up at?
This was in New Hampshire. in central New Hampshire. So I kind of had to fall back on that, and I started meditating a lot. I started to get back into the mindfulness practice, back into the Buddhist practices, back into the power of being intentionally present with your moment and such. And then I worked through a lot of that angst, I would call it, not necessarily angry, because I wasn't really angry at anything or anyone. There was just angst in there, and so
you just see, I'm telling you, I felt the same thing. And I know I talked to a lot of frogs, and that's why we go into law enforcement, and stuff, or do contracting, because it's hard. It's hard to turn it off. Anybody's ever had anxiety, it's very similar in the way of at night when the lights go down and everything gets quiet, we get this energy of, we got to get stuff done. Stuff has to be done. It's almost the same energy you feel the night before a test, and you feel like you have something to do, but when you leave the teams, that feeling that you had, whether it's for 5 years or how long were you in for?
5.
So you're in for 5 years as well, or 20 years, or like Grant Mann, 34 years, or CAG, who's still active. Not going to say his last name. I don't know if he uses his last name out, but 40 years getting ready to retire. That's a long time to get out. And then if you don't have something to put that energy to, which is what you're talking about, it's going to manifest itself in different ways.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So, I use these philosophies to help me, to ground myself and to try to manage that angst. And so that was the first book, Connecting with the Bliss of Life, with just the lessons that I learned for myself based on those age-old principles of, Buddhist philosophies, and that really helped me out. So that book I call these books really for me. They were for me. I wrote them for me because they were my path, and they were my journey and what I needed to do for me. And then once I was done with that book, it was kind of like, all right, so that got me to where I am now. Now what? Right? Now I need to go really conquer life, and elements of life success are those lessons, they're the lessons for leading a successful life. However you decide to define success on your own terms, in your own terms, it doesn't have to be being a Navy SEAL or being a multimillionaire or marrying a certain person or driving a certain car, because that's not what happiness is. So it's like, define what happiness is, define who you are, figure out what you like, what type of person you are, the things you are good at, and then go live a life that's full of those good things, and everyone can attain that. So that's kind of where I'm at in my life now. I followed those lessons in my book, which got me to sell a business that I wasn't happy with, go to college, test myself, bust my ass, challenge myself almost as much as I challenged myself through SEALs, and come out on the other side with a doctorate and have my own psychology practice and teach graduate students and really kind of walk that line between psychologist and helper and still have the frogman mindset, but bringing that to my practice and to my philosophy and helping a lot of veterans. Mm-hmm. Along the way, because I've been there, I've done that, I've felt that way, but now I'm on the other side. So there's a path.
So that was your first book.
So those were the first two. They were kind of, like I said, I wrote the first one in like 14 days, second one in like 26 days, and they were like back to back, and I kind of published them at the same time. And then the third book is really a children's story called Rain Saves Christmas, and it's only available on digital. Just about a horse that moves around to a different location, and it's at the Happy Heart Farm, and it kind of and things aren't going right, and everyone's got their personalities, and this horse is kind of like Pooh-like Winnie the Pooh, right. And a little Tigger, a little Pooh inside of there, and he kind of like saves Christmas with his attitude, even though he's been dealt the wrong, a bad hand, and right. Here he is, like cast out, he's just going to a rescue farm, and but he makes the best of it, and he brings everyone together, and it was kind of a kid's book. And
what's interesting is that I wrote a kid's book as well.
Yeah.
And that it was probably one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. And I got to do that with Danielle Kreiner, and we worked as a team to come up with the characters that are they mimic my dogs and a cat, and just putting this thing together and knowing that it could affect and influence a young child. Man, when we got done with it, it was, I remember when I got the first copy, and it was just, I sat back and I was like, wow, out of all the things I've done, this probably has brought me more fulfillment than anything else I've done. And if I ever hear of, one parent that told me, or one child, we may never know, but, that didn't go play behind the car and didn't get run over or didn't get choked on food because they remembered that lesson that's in that book, then that would be, it would just be amazing to know that occurred. But
yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the way I look at that book, the other books, and my career. If, one person, if I can help one human, regardless of age, race, color, creed, doesn't matter. We're all in it together. If I can help one person or 10 people or 100,000 people, that's what gives me the warm and fuzzy inside. That's what keeps me wanting to go do this job and get out there on the front lines and help people, put myself out there and help people.
Yeah. What is it about, we've had conversations about this. I mean, first of all, SEALs go through, and a lot of people talk about SEALs that are, all SEALs. We probably are the most published group of warriors that there is. I mean, good or bad, there's a lot of books out there. I don't know actually why that's bad. Frogmen going out and making idiots out of themselves, that's one thing, but publishing books, there's a lot of great reads. So I don't really know why that's a bad thing, but there's something different about SEALs. One of the guys that was, first of all, the sense of humor is ridiculous. So one guy, I'm not going to say who he was, a young guy, never met him before. He's been in the teams for several years, probably about 10 or more years. I walk up and it was, I think Hector was introducing me. And this is the first thing that came out of his mouth. He goes, "Hey, nice to meet you. Your team guy?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I guess that's where you got all that hair on your back from." So I'm like, what? But that's the sense of humor, So, but what is it? I have my own philosophy on this, but what do you think it is that makes us, unique out of all these special forces or just in the world of human beings? And what is that thing? What is it that gets it? And what is it that makes us different psychologically, once we've gone through this process of training and becoming molded into this person?
I think it's a little bit of nature nurture, and I know that they've spent probably hundreds of millions of dollars on researching how to make seals and how to make more seals. And according to my sources, they've failed every time. You can't make more seals. So I think it's kind of one of those things when there's the Michelangelo story when they said, how did you create, David, the statue of David? And, I wasn't there. It was a long time ago, but apparently Michelangelo said, hey, he was already in there. I just had to chip away. Right. So I believe as a psychologist, as a researcher of
and you have a PhD in psychology.
Right. I have a doctorate. I have an educational doctorate, not actually a PhD, but an EDD. So
I've got ADD.
Right. And
it was free.
And I don't need pills for my EDD. You can just call me doctor. So,
oh Lordy. Go ahead.
So yeah, there's not much of a big distinction between them, but whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. The different doctorate level things, but mine is applied, which means that I did a lot of hands-on work, and my entire dissertation, the entire time that I was doing this path, it was researching veterans issues, reintegration, moral injury, PTSD, and the psychotherapeutic modalities that would help combat veterans adjust better to the civilian life and integrate that incredible set of skills that we learned as military members, and migrate those, transfer those skills in a positive way into their civilian life. So that was my whole, 5 years of the doctorate training and 2 years of my master's in social work. And, I did all my work on veterans and issues. So
where'd you do that at?
So I did my master's of social work at the University of New Hampshire, exceptional college. I highly recommend it. And then I did my my doctorate work at Plymouth State University, again, another New Hampshire college. both within driving distances of my house. And that was my choice to, to stay local, to stay in my home state, stay next to my family. And
so getting back to this thing about what makes the Frogman, you were saying that Michelangelo said that statue was of David was already in there.
It was already in there. And then there's another famous quote, that circumstance does not make the man, right? Mm-hmm. It reveals him onto himself. So you don't know if you can be a frogman or an astronaut or a brain surgeon until you're in that position. You don't know if you're going to jump on the railroad tracks and save a kid that falls off onto the subway until the kid falls off on the subway in front of you, right? You don't know if you're going to win a Medal of Honor or a Purple Heart until you get shot and your buddy's shot and you have to pony up and do your job. Right. So you don't know until that situation is there, until you're in it, until something happens in your brain that says yes or no. So I believe that there are people that are born intrinsically that have that propensity, that have that ability to be a frogman, to go through that training. And training reveals that onto themselves, right? And then what happens through buds and through the tactical training and through platoon workups is that it takes that and it hones it and it directs it and it turns it towards something. Right?
Is there a point when that is too much? Like if some people make it through and they become this individual, and are some people where it goes too far, like they can't assimilate back into regular society? I believe
so. And because everybody is different and everybody has different upbringings and different worldviews and such, that yes, I absolutely believe that there are some people that can go through these traumatic times, combat, what have you, come out and be extremely well adjusted, go out into life, raise families, go to work, get a job, and be fine. And there are others that cannot and will not ever be able to do that. And that is both sides of the spectrum, and there's everybody in between. And I know the frogmen and the combat veterans from all eras that are listening to this right now understand exactly what I'm talking about, because we all know those people who are highly adjusted, and we all know those people who are not adjusted at all, and we know everyone in between. And there's, how to get the non-adjusted to the adjusted is really difficult, and sometimes it just won't happen. And I've been doing this a while, working with veterans, and even moving them inches sometimes is miles for people. Yeah.
I also, there's a couple of things here. One, when we go through the training that we go through, and a frogman or a SEAL candidate in BUDS, whatever you're a BUDS student, has to look inside themselves. It happens before Hell Week. You lose a lot of people in the 50-meter underwater swim. Is it 50 meter or 25 meter? We go 25 meters across underwater and come back, so it's really 50 meters. The underwater knot tying. Water freaks people out, and just the cold in general. The surf passage. I remember one time this guy walks up to another one of the officers that was there, and he said, "Hey, sir, if I'm going to quit, do I have to get in the pool?" So, there's a points in time through there, and then Hell Week, of course, and then the training just gets harder and harder after Hell Week. But we continuously are peering inside ourselves. I always equate it to like you're pulling your body open, you're looking at your soul, and then you're deciding on what you're actually capable of versus what your body is telling you to do. And when you get to that point, your mind takes on it clicks. It takes on something.
Clicks.
And I'm not comparing this in any way, but when I was watching in 9/11, I was in the Navy, and I was watching these people sitting in this burning building, and they had to make a decision. Am I going to burn to death or am I going to jump? And they jumped. And I think when you get to that point, when you actually are forced to look inside yourself and realize I may die from this, and this is where you're talking about saving somebody on a train track or something. Sometimes it's a split second where you actually have to look past who you are and what you're capable of. And that is a moment in time, I think, that many people go through, but that is something that we go through over and over and over again for the people that don't quit in buds and then go on to the teams.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And one further that I think there's, and let's talk about this for a minute. I think there's a moment. I've talked about this with a lot of my SEAL friends. There is a moment at buds where you know you're going to make it.
Yeah.
A moment.
And that for me was Wednesday of Hell Week. And I was sitting there. I mean, I went in there thinking there's nothing they can do to make me quit. But I remember Wednesday night of Hell Week sitting there, and my buddy was really sick. And his head swelled up to the size of a basketball. It was hilarious. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing. His head, because he's chiseled. The guy looks, Scott's going to know who I'm talking about. He looks like Leonardo DiCaprio. But that night, he looked like Leonardo DiCaprio's face painted. He looked like Wilson from the Tom Hanks movie, right? So his head was just round, and there were tears coming out of his eyes. And I was like, "What's wrong, man?" He goes, "Man, I don't know if my body's going to hold out, And I was actually laughing at the same time because I was like, "There's nothing they can do to make me quit. I just know it." I was actually having a blast during Hell Week. As weird as that sounds.
Yeah, and there were some people, and at sometimes I would say that it could be fun. Yeah. Despite the extreme psychological, emotional, and physical pressure, if you want to call it that, that we were under. And my moment was, and I wrote about this in Elements of Life Success. I think it's the first chapter. What are you made of? I didn't know. I was just this stupid 19-year-old kid and signed the papers. I'm going to go off and do this cool stuff, right? I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I signed those papers. Right. So I'm on the steel piers, and just prior to that, we did rock
steel piers. So everybody knows what that is. There's they take these barges that are made out of steel, and for those of you who don't know, the temperature of the bay in San Diego can go from the 60s down to the 50s. So the water is extremely cold. I think bath water, if you're to run it on cold, your bath water is not going to get any colder than the low 60s or low 50s unless you put ice in it. This is what they're putting us in. And they do a progression where they make you jump in. It's in the middle of the night, and they play games where you got to go under, hide the trainee. We go all the way under the water. They pull you out. They make you take your shirt off, make you jump back in, pull you out, make you take your boots and socks off, go back in. Eventually, you're in your underwear, and you're in there. How long were we were there for a long time?
all night.
Yeah,
all night,
going back and forth, and then you're laying on a steel barge that is free. It's such a dramatic event that they actually have. They have doctors on site to watch us what we're going on. Go ahead.
Doctors on site. So prior to that, we did rock portage. So if anyone's ever been to Southern California, in front of the Hotel Del Coronado, there's a big, huge rock jetty. And the California surf can be pretty rough every day, but this particular night, it was one of those really rough nights. And we tried to hit those rocks. We're in rubber boats called IBSs, inflatable boats, small. And there's 6 of us, and we're trying to paddle these boats in these slamming, huge surf zone waves onto these rocks. And we keep missing, and we keep missing. So at one point in time, I'm like, all right, this is it. I grab the rope, we come up close to the rock, and I leap off the boat. And as soon as I left the boat, I'm like, that was not the brightest idea. Well, boom, I slam on the rock, I go underwater, the boat goes over, pins me underneath the boat and the rocks, and I almost died. And then, of course, my buddies grabbed me, they pulled me up, but it got us on the rocks, right? So, but my back was done. I thought I broke my back. So they pretty much carried me across, because at that point in time, then we go across to the steel piers. And so we're in the water, out of the water. And my boat crew was fantastic. We're in the water, and they're holding me up because I could barely move. And then they pull me up and they throw me on the steel piers. And I'm like, oh my God. And then they roll us back in the water, and they're holding me up. And at one point in time, this goes on for hours and hours. And we get down to the point where, we lost our underwear. We were there naked, and it's winter time, went through a winter class, and they're hosing us down with freezing cold water and shoving hoses in our mouths. And we're in and out. And I was like, I couldn't even walk. I couldn't stand up. And so I literally hobbled up to the corpsman, and Instructor Clark was there. And he was new, I think, to Bud's at that point in time.
What class was this?
142.
Okay.
Nope. Bud's Hell Week was 141.
Same with me. Yeah.
Hell Week was 141. I broke my ankle, got rolled back to 142.
I was 217, graduated 218.
So I go up there, and he looked. Instructor Clark goes, "What's wrong?" And I told him about my back, and he looks at me, and he just looked at me, and he goes, "You're not a quitter, Ferruolo. Get back in the water." And I just looked at him, and that was the moment. I looked at him. I looked back at everyone in my water. My boat crew was yelling for me. And right there, I stood up straight and I said, "Hoo-yah, Instructor Clark." And I hobbled my way back to that steel pier and I jumped in that frickin' ocean. And from that second on, I knew I'd be wearing that pin. I knew I'd have that Budweiser pinned to my chest. And it was from then on, it did become sort of fun. It became a game. Mm-hmm. Bring it, bring it, bring it. I will stay here all night. You cannot break me. I am unbreakable now.
There were two times when I had that feeling. The other time was when I realized, I hated whenever they would let us get warmth. As weird as that sounds, because I didn't want to get cold again, because it was a psychological, just a whip. It was like being whipped psychologically. It was just torturous. So I almost feared getting warm because I didn't want psychologically to go through the I'm cold again process. So I would just rather stay pretty much cold and be comfortable and not comfortable, but be satisfied with that. But then I think this might've been the same night as Wednesday night, maybe Thursday of Hell Week, where you can't really do a whole lot. So they had, cause you're so broken at that point, they had us do a water polo competition, in the middle of the night. And so we're in the pool and they keep the pool, it's crisp 71 degrees, something like that. And so we're in there, and they said whoever wins this gets to go into the hot showers. Whoever loses has to go in the decontamination showers, which is freezing cold water. And it's like, I think there's like 50 jets or something like that with the water. And that's the worst, the most horrific feeling. Sound is that just sends chills to your body. So I told my team, I was like, we are not going to lose this game. I don't care what we got to do. We're not going to lose this. And we won. And I remember sitting in the hot water and thinking to myself, stop fighting getting warm. Just accept it when it happens and embrace it. And that's the game. If you can embrace it, the good times when you have them, and deal with the hard times when they come, you are going to really enjoy those great moments in life, no matter how short they are. That was a huge thing for me. But after Hell Week, we did another thing. I think this might have been, I don't remember if this was in first phase or second phase, but we were doing buddy rescues where you swim. So our pool was 50 meters long, 25 meters wide. And we had to do where you jump in the water with your swim buddy. You wrap your arms around his chest. He's on his back, and you swim him to the other side like you're rescuing him. Then you switch. He swims you back. And so the way you get through these evolutions, I'm telling the people this, is that you just think, I got to get through this evolution and then I'll deal with the next one when it happens. This evolution just seemed like it would never end. And we were in that water for probably 3 hours, swimming back and forth. They would pull us out. They would let the sun cook us. In San Diego, there's always sun, but it's in the wintertime, because I went through and started in January, and so there's always a breeze, but we get in the sun, we get cooked, and they make us get back in that water again. And going back and forth, I didn't think I wouldn't make it, but I was like, one, when is this ever going to end? And two, is this worth it? Is this something that so this must have been before Hell Week, because I was thinking to myself, is this something, I know I can do it, but is this worth it? Is this something that I need in my life? And I said yes, but other people would say no.
Yes. Correct.
And they left. We lost a lot of people that day.
Yeah. Just, it's amazing how many people that you thought when you first got there would make it. I remember Instructor Carlock, if he was there at the time, Rocky Carlock, just looking down at me. He was a at that point in time in my life, he was this massive, imposing, godlike creature from the lagoon. And, he looked at me and he was like, this...
Like Rick Kaiser.
Right. Like, he just looked at me and my swim buddy, Jim Cronin, and he looked at both of us and he goes, well, these skinny little you-know-whats aren't going to make it, right? And then he looked at the guy next to me, who was this big jack dude, and he was like, now you look like a frog man, And within a week, that big jack dude was crying, like literally crying, and he quit. And me and Jim were looking at each other. We were kind of like, this isn't even tough yet. Like
that is, you go there, and we used to bet on how quickly the big bodybuilder dudes would quit.
Oh my God, it was amazing to see like these guys, and you were like, what am I doing here? Look at that guy.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, look at him, and we were jealous and envious and scared because like you had all these guys that looked like they were, they just came from Mount Olympus and they're going to just crush us and become these like legendary frogmen. And then when it was the end, it was like me and Jim and all those big guys were gone, and I was like, whoa,
I think people would be surprised at some of the, if they were amongst a lot of frogmen, how there's some guys, listen, there's model dudes and there's big dudes. There's always going to be those guys. But there's a lot of frogmen that you would be like, wow, I just never would think that guy's that intense.
Right. Absolutely.
But they are.
Because it's in the mind.
Yeah.
The mind the body goes where the mind tells it. And
I always tell this little thing is that, I always ask people, how far are you willing to go? Are you committed? Are you dedicated, and how far are you willing to go? And there was a guy, I was in third phase. This guy was I think he was in first phase. They were doing the beehive, and that's where they get people in the deep end of the pool. It's 15 feet deep, and they have the whole class swim together. Your masks are filled with water. You all swim together, and then when you get in the middle, you have to go all the way down and outside, underwater, back to the outside of the beehive, and then work your way back in. And this pool has windows underneath where the instructors can watch. They got that hallway. Did they have that when you were there?
No.
So they got this hallway that goes around and they can look into the pool and see what's happening. This guy goes down and as he's going down, he got kicked in the face by somebody else because he didn't go deep enough, and he sucked in water and he drowned, and that guy died. And that was just in first phase. So, but he was committed to death. He was committed, and he, and forgive me for not knowing his name, but I could probably find it somewhere. But when you're going through this in passing and these things happen, it's almost like you're, holding something outside the window in your car and it slips out of your hand and goes away. That's the way those memories are. They're just gone. But I always bring that guy up because he entered Buzz, and he didn't leave. I mean, he committed himself to life in there. And that's the way I look at the guys who end up making it through. They have that commitment.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And then that commitment for some of us goes beyond the battlefield.
Well, that's the key to it. I don't think most SEALs realize, well, we're a little scatterbrained when we're on our own because we want to do it all.
Right. Absolutely.
And that is actually something that if you don't get a hold of can make you end up feeling, because you're capable of doing it all, but you're not focused. It's like an ADD problem. Right. And you can end up broke because you tried too much. You can end up with no friends because you spoke too much, or you can end up isolated because you didn't get involved. Right.
And sometimes when you have that propensity to be a rock star 100% of the time, going 100 miles an hour and doing 100% more, it doesn't make you a fan of your coworkers.
No, not at all.
And you don't see it as that because here you are, and I've had personal experiences with this at places where I've worked, agencies where I worked, where I'm still a frogman, and I am still running as hard as I can, and I am committed to death, and I am going to do this. But to me, that's my mindset. It's not even a mindset anymore. It's my way of life. It's my essence of who I am.
Right.
It's the essence of who I am. So I don't see it from the outside. I don't see it from the outside. But other people feel that impact tremendously. And it's something that I struggle with being cognizant of that impact that I have on other people, and People say like, you're too intimidating, or, you're too intense, or, you need to tone it down a little bit, or can you just relax a little bit? And I'm like, I'm listening to them and I'm like, what do you mean I'm too intimidating? Or what do you mean I need to relax and tone it down? Because my inner circle of friends would be like, oh, Dave, he's like the biggest puppy dog. Just don't piss him off. Right. He's like the biggest puppy dog, but you know what? If something bad happens, we want him,
Right.
Right. And at my agency, it was funny because I'd get this, but then, the emergency plan for active shooter was get Dave. Right. And, and for 8 years at my agency, I had weapons stashed in my agency in lockboxes in very tactical locations that nobody knew about because, mental health agents, there's a lot of people. I mean, think of Chris Kyle and, and his unfortunate, that tragedy at the hands of someone that was very mentally ill. So, I'm always ready. And, so we're like, get Dave. If Dave's working, we're safe, and the marshals in my town and the cops in my town knew where I worked, and they knew that they had me on the inside. And, so like, that's my mindset, but they only appreciated that, like when we talked about that stuff.
Yeah.
And all the other stuff, it was like, he makes us look bad, or he does too much.
See, that was the Bureau. There was no get Jonathan. The Bureau, everybody thinks that they are the best at whatever they're the best at. Like, I would never tell somebody who was an accountant how to, figure out those numbers in white collar, or tell an attorney how to look at that legal thing, but they don't give two craps about what, our experience in the FBI. They don't care.
Right.
And they'll step right over you. Like, I remember, I should have learned this early on when I was in the academy and trying to tell somebody, I was just trying to help them out. When you go through the room, I think we were talking about sweeping the corners, and I was saying, you don't have to penetrate into the room that far. It's literally, you have to step in and look at that wall or that corner as you move towards it, and then you can turn, but you don't have to keep moving into the room. Man, they're like, we have instructors to teach us. I don't need you teaching me how to do that. I was like, okay, that was the end of me trying to help anybody out there. But that's a hard lesson to learn for some frogmen and for veterans in general. And I think this is something that really plagues this society, is that they don't recognize the value that a lot of these people bring out. And I truly believe that what people a lot of times call PTSD, or, oh, that guy, he's a veteran, he's got issues. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't use us for anything. There shouldn't be a frogman that's unemployed.
Right. Absolutely.
There shouldn't be, and veterans that have not just combat experience, but logistics people that are actually, how many logistics people out there before they got on the job had never done logistics? You could take veterans that were in supply, and they literally moved mountains from one point into a war zone to the next, and they've done it, but they don't give them any preferential treatment for that whatsoever.
Right.
And so listen, let me ask you this real quick. Not real quick. We got plenty of time. And if I have to split this into two shows, I'll split it into two shows. But let's talk real quick about the Navy SEALs Fund. When I got involved with that with Drago's also the same guy I talk about all the time that's doing connectzing.com, which if you, there's a mass exodus from Facebook right now. People are going to Parler. And I would just suggest for everybody that's going to Parler that you just pause and look at the people who are responsible for Parler, and look at Drago, myself. Look at Drago's wife. She's an Air Force Academy grad. Drago was a Polish citizen who was put in a gulag, a socialist prison, for having a typewriter. Got out, came to the United States, became an American citizen, and became a frogman. The day that he got his citizenship, he went and enlisted in the Navy, became a SEAL, was a SEAL for 20 years. Now he's a computer programmer. And he's also, on the board of the Navy SEALs Fund. And so he's created this social media platform so you are not going to be censored, so that you can be free. And we're working on developing this into a whole different type of social media platform for people. So if you're going to do a backup page, or if you're wanting to leave Facebook, go to ConnectZing. And also it's growing. If you have a suggestion, you can write Drago, direct message him on there, and he will start to implement things and try to make it smoother. It's for you, and you have a say in this social media platform. So connectzing.com, that's what it's called, one word. But with the Navy SEALs Fund, one thing that stood out for me once I started finding out about the Navy SEALs Fund was a friend of mine had something happen. They had a tragedy in their family, and there were other, I'm not going to say the names, but there were other nonprofits that or foundations that work with SEALs and veterans in general, and they did not jump on the bandwagon. Even the Navy wasn't fast in getting there, but the Navy SEALs Fund was. They're fast at getting in there and fast at helping people. And explain to people a little bit about, what it exactly is that the Navy SEALs Fund does and why they're so fast at helping people out and what makes them different as far as the money, who gets paid, so on and so forth.
Sure. Well, I came on board the Navy SEALs Fund because I really aligned with their mission, and their mission is to be basically like a SEAL platoon, fast action, right? Quick decisions, get your intel, get it right, make a decision, and then carry out your op, and then get home. So sometimes we can have funds out to people within hours. So we have this mechanism where we have quarterly watches, and let me back up a little bit. So the Navy SEALs Fund, NavySealsFund.com, is a 501c3, and it's a brotherhood beyond the battlefield. All the members of the board are former Navy SEALs, except for, I believe, 2, and we just recently, Drago's wife, Rachel, who was instrumental in getting everything done and getting this up and running. And then we just brought on another gentleman because of his just massive skill set that we need. And he's been so instrumental and so supportive over the years that it was kind of like customary. We had to bring him on. So we're a small fund. We don't have millions, but what we do is we rally fast around things that pop up that like the VA wouldn't cover or that health insurance wouldn't cover. Like recently in our SEAL community, within the last few months, we've had several really tragic deaths. And I won't go into those, but the Navy SEALs Fund was able to assess the situation and get logistical support and funds out to these families, right, that lost SEALs within one day. And we also supplied... I
don't think most people realize how remarkable that is, because that's very, very remarkable.
One day.
Yeah.
One day. And, another one of our advisory board members, Johnny Pepis, reached out to me, and he said, listen, my good friend just died. Can you help me get some funds from the Navy SEALs Fund? And I'm like, dude, you're on the advisory board, call Rachel and let her know. And I said, but let me reach out. So I reached out to Rachel, and we're talking within hours, right? Rachel was already working on the package. She texted me back. She goes, it's in the works, hold. And I held for, 15 minutes, and then boom. So she's so
squared away, I'm going to start calling her Rain Woman.
She is like, she's amazing. And to be in charge, well, not in charge, but she pretty much runs this fund, and she's in charge of all of us Navy SEALs. And I'm like, she reins us in so well. She is like the perfect commander of the Navy SEALs Fund.
The Navy SEAL Museum has Ruth, and she's like that. I mean, we were talking yesterday about how when you put SEALs in, this is the weird thing about SEALs, right? You put them in charge, but if you have guidelines for what they should do, they'll carry those guidelines out better than anybody else. But if you have a gaggle of SEALs, man, we're going to jack it up eventually. You throw somebody like Rachel or Ruth in there, they're going to do amazing things.
Right, because they hold us to that line.
Yeah.
They say, no, you're going a little bit left.
And we had Margaret when we were the details off. So it's like women, for some reason, you put the right woman in the middle of a bunch of SEALs, and maybe they should start making the commanders of the SEAL teams a female. I don't know. Just a whip cracker. I don't know. That'd be interesting.
I don't know. Someone's probably listening to this right now. Going,
maybe not. That was just a joke. I was not being serious.
Right. We might be entombed in this thing by the time we get finished with this.
All of a sudden starts driving off with us. Yeah.
A little bit of gas coming through the air conditioning. Okay, we're done. But we're going to go out good, because if that happens, we're breaking into this
breaking that glass.
Woodford Reserve, whatever this is.
Hey,
here. It looks pretty good.
By the way, I'm looking at this picture right up here. I don't know who the guy is, but he's got the headgear that we always wear. And every frogman that, we used to see these pictures, and you see that headgear, you're like, oh, this is way back when. And you look at it and go, man, I can't wait for the day that I get to wear that headgear and you look cool with the glass. That shit is the most uncomfortable. You get in the water, it's halfway off your head. You can't hardly hear out of it. I don't know who made that, but it was the worst.
Well, luckily,
you know which one I'm talking about, the one in that picture right there.
Luckily for me, I was out before that was implemented, so I just got to wear a green bandana around my head.
Well, we didn't get to do. They stopped that for us because in the first Iraq War, when CNN was on the beach, when the Marines, they thought it was SEALs. I said it was SEALs, but it was actually Marines came in, and the guy had a bandana tied around his head. Naval Special Warfare stopped allowing us to wear headbands after that. For some stupid reason. I don't know why that was.
Huh.
Yeah.
Things that make you go,
Yeah.
So anyway, back to the Navy SEALs Fund. Frogmen, we digress. See, we can't stay on point. We're just like all over the place. So Navy SEALs Fund, Brotherhood Beyond Battlefield, we do really great things for SEALs in need, Gold Star families, which Gold Star families are families that have lost, like the husband or the patriarch of the family that was a SEAL or was a military member. So we step in. So if there's a family that the SEAL was the husband and father, and he passes away, then we step in and we help with, like the last few times, with funeral arrangements, with transportation, with we have the Trident exchange, where it's customary for SEALs, for your brothers to, when you go to a SEAL's funeral, to pin a Trident onto the casket. So we've facilitated getting Tridents to frogmen to go to funerals. And so that's just one of the things we do. We help out financially. Recently, there was a frogman who had some, difficult times in his life, job transitions, and they needed some financial help. So we voted on, we do our due diligence. We look into it. We make sure it's valid. We just don't throw money out there because, hey, let's face it, we are frogmen, and sometimes we screw up our own lives, and we don't deserve someone to send us a check. All right. And we all know who we are. So, right. I've been there, I've done that. And like, if someone would have sent me a check, I would have been, you dumbasses. Right? Like I did this myself. Right. So, but like when a kid is suffering, or when insurance lapse, or when you get fired from a job because of COVID, and when these things happen, like who's there to help you? The VA doesn't help you. The government doesn't help you. And if you're a frogman that got out without doing a career, you might not have that pension or that health care to fall back on. So Navy SEALs Fund fills in the gaps, and I wish
guys like me I have 20 years of service, but in 4 different agencies, so I don't have a pension.
Right. So, if you broke down on the side of the road and you were hurt,
very well may happen now.
And you were laid up at a hospital somewhere in Timbuk nowhere, you called us in, we would send brothers down to help you out, because that's what we do, and it's just a really good feeling to be on a board with so many dedicated frogmen, and I think this gives us a mission. It gives us something to do. It gives us something to focus on, and it continues to keep us part of the brotherhood and continue to give back to the brotherhood. So we're still part of it. It's like, we're not in the teams, but we're still part of the teams.
So now I want to talk to you about. First of all, also, I know how we do, but if somebody wants to find out how they can donate to the Navy SEALs Fund, how do they go about that?
So NavySealsFund.com, .org. I'm sorry, I keep saying .com, but it's .org, right? So NavySealsFund.org. You can go to our website and you can donate through there. We also have a Facebook, Navy SEALs Fund Facebook. We also have other social media, and there's funding links to that. If you go to Google and type in Navy SEALs Fund, you'll find us. If you're in Facebook or Instagram or any of those big social medias, you'll find Navy SEAL Fund splash pages, and you will find links to donate. We also run this is one of the cool things that we do, is that in significant emergencies where we need to raise significant amounts of money for someone in need, we have these like flash fundraisers, and sometimes we can raise $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 for a significant event when it comes out.
Like the bike that we just auctioned off. Tell what happened with that. I mean, that was pretty fascinating. What happened with?
So when you talk about, you said at the beginning of the show, we got to do our Frogman thing, right? So
let me just say this: no story where the Frogmen are involved. When I say tell that story, is it going to be normal? This is
right. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
So like when you say it was Frogman, what it means is it's epic. It's awesome. It's like, you won't expect it anywhere else, and it probably wouldn't happen anywhere else except if a Frogman was involved, or another member of some elite special forces that has similar training, similar mindset, similar attitudes. But here's the deal: the Frogmen have their own culture, their own feel, their own philosophy that's different from all the other special forces. It kind of sets us apart, in that way. That's probably why we get in so much trouble, but also why we're so damn good at the job that we do. Right. So damn good at the job.
Might be why we rub some people the wrong way. Might be. I don't know.
Right. I mean, let's just face it, America. Let's just face it, world. You cannot train someone to be one of the most badass human beings on the face of the planet and expect him to be a Sally at the same time. Right? Yeah. We're not Mary Poppins, right? We are not Mary Poppins. You can package us up, put us in a suit, but deep down underneath that, we have gone through that training. We have done these things. We have been to those places, and we have the capability to do things that most human beings don't even want to acknowledge the existence of. Mm-hmm. So, we're in a league all by ourselves, and that whether you did 5 years or 40 years, it doesn't matter. I've seen it. I've seen guys that have been out for 30 years. I mean, I've done some things that I didn't know I could still do in the moment when I needed to do them, at, over 50 years old and out of the teams for 30 years. Right. I am still a Frogman every damn day, so wherever I was going with that. So
about the bike. No, what happened with the bike?
So
there was a big buildup, but what happened with the bike raffle?
So what happened with the bike was Frogman all the way. So we get all these Frogmen in one place, and they were all quiet. Okay, so first of all, that's Frogman, because getting 30 Frogmen, how many people were in there? 50 Frogmen?
Yeah, it was a lot.
There was a huge room full of Frogmen, and maybe alcohol was involved, but maybe there were kids listening, so I'm not going to say that they were all a bunch of drunks, but maybe there was some alcohol involved, and maybe
they're not drunks, but they're very unique drunks. They're very aggressive drunks.
They drink like Frogmen, all right, just like they operate.
I'll put it to you this way: my drill instructor from Officer Candidate School, John Crouch, who have had on the experts before, was there, came down to see the speech, and he was in the room while we're auctioning this off. And every time they were just like, they take advantage of it's the exact same way you would feel if you're in a classroom and somebody's given, is saying something, and you want to say something funny every time they pause or they screw up. Well, Frogmen do. And it was out of control. And I looked at John Crouch and I said, you see, this is what I went to after I left Officer Candidate School. And now you wonder why it's hard for a junior officer to manage this. I mean,
exactly.
It's not like herding cats. It's like herding attack dogs.
It's like herding attack dogs. Exactly. So just the fact that the Frogmen in that room were all fairly courteous and respectful and kept it down. Okay, that's Frogman right there, because the restraint that it took for them to do that was just incredible. So guys, if you're listening, thank you.
But it went up and down. It went
up and down. But we gave them a little leeway. You got to give a little to get a little. Yeah. So then anyway, I'm going to cut to the chase. I pulled the winner. Okay, I pulled the winner, and we had this raffle that went on for almost a year. It started at last year's muster in Conception, and then it finished up at this year's muster with drawing a raffle for a 2020 Indian Scout 100th Anniversary Edition motorcycle, which was generously donated, not donated, but facilitated by Polaris, Indian corporates, parent company, and Ed Mulbeck, a former team guy, who has a Indian motorcycle shop in Virginia. So, thank you to both of those guys. Johnny Pepis was instrumental. Another team guy, works for Polaris. So we got all these team guys pulling together. So that's Frogman right there. All these team guys pulling together to make this thing happen. And then, so this motorcycle, travels around the country for a while, goes to all these events, and then ends up back here in Florida. And so we pull the winner, right? I pull the winner, and it's Kim Torgensen. And, we announce it on live stream, and then he's not there, and he's not on the live stream, and nobody knows where he is. So, me and two other team guys go out in the parking lot, and we call him, and we're like, Kim, you won the motorcycle. And he's like, what? Wait, I won the motorcycle? And, and another Frogman goes, so, Kim, remember what we talked about? And Kim's like, yep, give it back. Give it back. I don't want it. I want it. Good. I want it to go to a good cause. Go, Dave, go make some more money. Go auction it off. Right.
Wow.
So this guy, he bought, I don't know how many, a couple hundred tickets anyway, so he spent a few $100s buying these tickets. Right. He won an $18,000 or $17,000 motorcycle, and it was his. And we were going to send it back to his house in Virginia on one of the trucks that was leaving the next day. And he said, no, I don't want it. I want you to go find a home for it and go get some more money for it and give that money to the Navy SEALs Fund, because I don't need that bike and I don't need that money. You give it to a brother. A brother needs that bike and we need more money, right? Let's raise more money.
Amazing.
That's epic. That is, when we say Frogman, that's Frogman.
Yeah.
That's Frogman. That's what Frogmen do. So then I come back in, and now it's been like another hour. So these gentlemen are out there, these frogly gentlemen are out there, after maybe 3 or 4 more shots
without their shirts on, and scream, Mike.
And so I get up on on these big orange barriers, and I start yelling, yeah, bike's available. Let's gonna have a live auction. And someone comes running up and goes, I'll give you $10,000 for it right now. And I'm like, wait, are you serious? And he goes, yeah. And then we got another yell from the other side of the crowd, I'll give you 11. And I think it was 6 minutes, right? I mean, you were standing there.
I think it was like literally, it was like 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Up to 13,000.
It went up to 13, and then it went back and forth. And then
Mike bid himself back up, and he said, no, I'll give 15. And everybody's like, dude, you're the one that just bid 13. He goes, screw it, 15.
So Michael Donnelly, okay, being totally Frogman at that point in time. Now,
no shirt on.
With no shirt on, right?
Wife looking at him.
Wife with her jaw down to her kneecaps, right? And he offers to give us $15,000 right there on the spot for this motorcycle. Now let me tell you something about Michael Donnelly. He had already spent about $1,400. I'm sorry, Mike, I'm giving away all your secrets, but he already bought about $1,400 worth of tickets and dropped another couple $100s on tickets at the muster. And he just kept saying, this is for the guys, man. I need to do more. I need to do more. Yeah. And then he dropped $15,000 and he took that motorcycle. I mean, I don't even know what to say, except
I would say turn around and sell it for $18,000.
I would say turn around, sell it for 18 and then give the money back. Yeah. Right. So that's Frogman.
Yeah.
That is Frogman. Where else will you see that happen? I've never seen anything like that happen.
It's the fun when seeing something like that is the funniest and most touching thing you see at the same exact time. It was like, we were dying, like, we're like, only a Frogman would upbid himself.
Only a Frogman wait, 13's not, someone's going to outbid me. Screw it. I'm going to 15. Wait.
That's not the way it works.
I don't care.
So the Navy SEALs Fund got a lot of money out of that bike, and that is money that's held in reserve when people need it. It goes, like you said, sometimes within an hour. And so every quarter we have a handful of team guys that are on
a quarterly watch. So I happen to be on the quarterly watch for this quarter. So what happens is that Rachel gets the request and she does her due diligence and she investigates it. She makes sure that everything is above board and this is definitely a deserving thing. And then she writes it all up and she sends it out. And it comes into our our emails or text messages, and we all basically vote thumbs up, thumbs down, or we ask for more information and such. And sometimes we have decisions in like minutes. Like I was up at 1:00 one morning and the email comes in and I'm like reading it, and and I knew a little bit about the background, so I typed, approved, absolutely, send it, boom. And like I woke up in the morning and there was a whole string of approves. Like I was up at 1:00, and then between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. when I get up, all the other guys were already responding.
Yeah.
And that next morning, funds were being shipped out.
Right.
Logistics were being put into place, and someone who needed help immediately got help immediately and did not have to wait 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or, we'll get back to you with a decision sometime in, 2 months.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's the way it should be. And unfortunately, most people don't realize, most of these nonprofits, they don't work like that. They take their time, and it's forever before they get anything to if they even do. I've seen circumstances where they got nothing, and these individuals ended up having to face this stuff on their own. Let me see where we're at here. So I tell you what we'll do here is we're gonna break this show. I'm gonna come back with Dave tomorrow, talk about the Frogmen Motorcycle Club and the incredible things that they do and how intimidating that must be when the motorcycle club of all seals rolls up. So we'll do that tomorrow. But for now, let's break here, and I'm going to have some more updates and stuff throughout the week about. I know people have been waiting to find out, what I have to say about what's going on, and I'm going to get to that. I touched a little bit on Monday's show, on Tuesday's show, but I will eventually get to, because I'm really just waiting to see what occurs. I mean, people are saying this or saying that'll happen as far as Trump and the vote and stuff goes, but I just have to give that time, and then we'll see where we go. So let's break it there, and we'll be back tomorrow with more Dave Ferruolo. I'm saying that right. Whenever I hear Dave Ferruolo, I keep thinking of, come on down to Dave Ferruolo's and get some furniture. I don't know why I keep thinking of that, but it's actually Dr. Dave Ferruolo, for all your psychological needs. And tell everybody the name of your books.
Elements of Life Success and Connecting with the Bliss of Life.
And they can find those.
They're still on Amazon.
Okay. All right. Dave Ferruolo. And I'm going to put the links to that up on social media as well. So we'll cut right here and we'll see you tomorrow. Veterans Day 2020, and a lot is going on in this nation. It's very difficult in times like these to pause and remember that there's men and women that have served for our freedom. Those stripes on the flag are red for a reason. They stand for the blood that's been sacrificed for this nation, for the Constitution and the freedoms that it presents. But there's something about this Veterans Day that's very unique. As you think a veteran, it's time for you to realize that even though you may be a civilian, you're the one that is now on the front line, and it's time for you to serve as well. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here. Happy Veterans Day.